All right, everybody, welcome to this course, Philosophy 110, Introduction to Logic and Reasoning. I'm very happy to be teaching this course again. I hope you are happy to take it as well. So, my name is Nick Filio, Nicolas Filio, but Nick is good. Uh, I am recording those lectures for the beginning of this semester because, well, COVID being a rather relentless thing, it doesn't give us much of an opportunity, it seems, to have our in-person teaching. So until further notice, I'm going to pre-record lectures and make them available for you. Uh, Now, my office hours for this course are going to be on Monday and Wednesday. Notice the two different times so that it doesn't overlap with tutorials. And I will also be available for meeting meetings by appointment. Make sure to give me prior notice, at least 24 hours. Uh, for now, those meetings will take place online via Zoom, but after that, when we return to in-person teaching, they're going to be in my office in West Mall Center, 4614. Now, I am currently in my office recording this with this beautiful view of the snowy mountain and very beautiful sight. Unfortunately, you might not be enjoying it now, but let's hope that it's going to become possible in the near future. For this course, you're going to need to use Canvas extensively. I'm going to explain why a little bit later. And to contact me, please use emails. I check my emails fairly often. I also have an office phone, but I don't really use it. So please please use emails. Don't use Canvas messaging. I don't check those very often either. So really, email is going to be your best bet to contact me. Now, until we return to in-person teaching, as I was saying, we're going to have pre-recorded lectures. And then also the office hours and the appointments are going to be held on Zoom. For all the office hours and appointments, I'm going to use the same Zoom information, which you can see here. The slides are available on Canvas, and you might notice that the links are clickable, so that should make it very convenient for you. There's also an announcement on Canvas with the link for the Zoom information, which you can access very easily. I will also have general office hour in addition to the two that are specifically for that course. So that one is going to be on Friday from 12:30 to 1:30. And notice that it's a different Zoom link. It's my personal Zoom room, since it's going to perhaps be used by people in my other course as well. Now, let me start this discussion of the course by pointing out something that perhaps you should know. I've been told in the past that some people find the study of logic a little bit dry as a subject. So as a result, I'm going to try to teach in a way that is not too robotic and try to be more like a normal human being. And hopefully that's going to make it easier to tolerate what comes in the course. Now, as you might have noticed, I'm a French person, so I do speak with a little bit of an accent. However, I'm not a French person coming from France, that is not it. I'm just someone coming from Quebec, from rural Quebec, and some of you might be surprised to know that in Quebec there are large areas where people don't speak English at all. And that was the case for me. I learned English very late in my life, which is why I have this accent that well, I'll probably never get rid of. Now, as a result, occasionally I might have turns of phrases that are a little bit bizarre, and I'm just going to ask you to be tolerant when that happens. Uh, yeah, for the most part, I think I'm going to be perfectly understandable, but, this is something that always happens when you're an English second language speaker. Uh, some of you might recognize the person on the slide, but some of you might not. It's Jean Chrétien, who was Prime Minister of Canada from, I think, 1993 to 2003. And he was famous for speaking both French and English terribly. So I'm starting to be in that position of only speaking second languages. But anyway, I'm just saying that because I know many of you are going to be English second language people, or maybe third language or fourth language, who knows. And of course, that adds some difficulty to the course. And if you're struggling, don't hesitate to come to us and just to ask questions or further explanation or things like that. We're going to understand perfectly well, since many of us are also English second language speakers. Now, there are some funny comments that I've seen online where someone said PHIL110 was hectic, but I think it's because my prof was aggressively French Canadian. Now, I don't know. I don't think the course is going to be hectic. I think it's going to be rather, fairly well structured and clear. And I don't really know what it means to be aggressively French Canadian. In any case, I just thought that was a little bit funny and amusing. But I'm never going to bring that up again. I just wanted to ask you to be a little bit tolerant if I have a turn of phrase here and there that is not perfect. Now, I grew up on a farm, so I was a pig farmer. I also spent a lot of time working on maple farm, doing maple syrup, and in orchards. And when I was younger, my plan was never to do academia. I almost ended up going in college by accident. But once I started college, I was like, you know what? This is much less hard than farm work. So I just kept doing more and more of it. And in the end, I did 14 years of post-secondary education. And eventually that led me to have this job where I teach here at SFU, a job that I very much like, of course. Now, during my studies, I studied both in philosophy and in applied mathematics. I've got a master's in both. And then I did my PhD in philosophy of science. So my main areas of specialization are logic, history and philosophy of mathematics, philosophy of science, scientific computing. If that means anything to you, I spent many years working in numerical analysis. Also decision and game theory, and just overall, analytic philosophy. I'm also in the process of adding ancient Greek philosophy to my areas, and I will in fact be teaching that next summer. So if you like this course, you might also be interested in what's coming up next. But of all those things, logic really has a special place in my heart because it's such a central thing in all disciplines, and it really helps you to structure your thought better. And I find it such a beautiful topic, and I really hope I will make you see just how beautiful it is and stimulate your interest in that topic. Now, my main reason for studying logic is because I think it's fun. But as I pointed out, some people have told me that they find it a little bit dry. So fortunately, there are also some pragmatic reasons for studying logic. First of all, as I said, it's central to basically all disciplines. So studying logic will really help you to carry on inquiry and study in all those disciplines. But furthermore, it will help you to better structure your thoughts. So as a result, you're going to see distinctions that perhaps you weren't seeing as easily before. And I think as a result, it's going to make your writing more precise, and it's really going to help your readers to understand the thoughts that you are trying to articulate, which is very important in academia. One thing I really like about logic, as opposed to many other fields, is that they are really clear-cut answers to the problems that we are asking. So it's not really matters of degrees or matters of opinions or perspective. It's really a beautiful discipline where we are asking problems and actually providing answers to them. And that can be very, very rewarding, I think. Also, it's a very broad topic, so it can fit your interests, whether you are studying, I don't know, in math or physics or computer science or economics or linguistics or political science, etc. Now, in this course, we really focus on the elementary part. So that's common to all the disciplines. But, for a second and a third year course, or a graduate course, often there are ways of tailoring it to fit your own interest. And if you don't really have any interest yet, hopefully maybe it's going to stimulate some of them. And as I said, we're going to try to make it fun. So that's always one of the good reasons to study logic. Now, a lot of folks come into that course with an attitude that I find a little bit hard to understand. Some people think of themselves as not being logical persons, so they take that course with anticipation, perhaps because they need a Q course, but really they don't think of themselves as having good logical skills. They don't think they have the gift or the innate talent to do logic. And I think this is just wrong, okay? Just like you would do physical exercise to, build your muscles and increase your reaction time and things like that, you can do the exact same thing with logic. So for physical exercise, I probably should do a little bit more in order to lose the pounds that I've accumulated during my COVID years. But at the very least in this course, we're going to ensure that the brain muscles are put to training. Now, sometimes it's hard to notice the improvement in your logical skills. So one thing I would recommend if you want to have a very tangible way of seeing your improvement is to time yourself when you work on the problems. So you're going to have a workbook in which you do your problems, and if you feel like it, just write in a margin how much time it took you to solve a particular problem. And when you're going to revisit the problem later in the semester, perhaps as part of a review for an exam, you're going to see that you're going to solve it a lot faster, perhaps 10 or 20 times faster, which is really an astonishing improvement of logical skills. So I encourage you to do that. Also, there's a funny excerpt from the movie Twins with Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito that explains why one should study logic. And I'm not going to go over that now, but if you want, just go on Canvas, download the slides, and click on the link here. And I think it should make you laugh a little bit. All right, so let me talk a little bit about the course requirements. Now, the course is not easy in the sense that there are some difficult questions that you're going to be encountering. And it's also a very abstract discipline, which means you're going to have to focus and concentrate a lot in order to assimilate this material. But one thing that it's not is tricky. When I was a student, I always felt cheated when people asked questions that are really meant to trick students. So in this course, it's going to be very transparent. I will tell you exactly what sort of questions to expect and what you need to do to solve those questions. Some are going to be harder, but again, you're going to know exactly what to expect, and there are no tricks. The grading criteria for the course are very simple. Since it's logic, the main criterion is getting the answer right. Just that. That simple. In addition to that, I will ask you to write good English. It's not a text message you're sending to a friend. And also to have good handwritings, because the exams are going to be written by hand. And some people think we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt if their writing isn't clear, but really that's not going to happen. So that's it, right? No surprise, no trick. In this course, we're going to try to make it as transparent as possible. On the course website on Canvas, you're going to be able to click on the Files tab, and there you're going to see an additional exercises file that contains about 800 questions, as well as the answers to those 800 questions. So that's a big file, about 177 pages. The questions are organized for each of the units in this course. So I've prepared that so that you will know exactly what sort of questions you have to be able to answer in order to perform well in the exam. And that's really going to be your best way of preparing for those exams. Because if you can solve all those questions, well, the exam questions are going to be just like those. So you're going to be doing well in the exams also. Okay, so for the first part of the course, as I mentioned, we're going to have pre-recorded lectures, but I really look forward to us going back in the classroom after that. In those lectures, I'm not going to go over everything that is in the textbook, at least the part that corresponds to that lecture. Because I think it's kind of stupid, to read the textbook to you. You should be able to do that yourself. It's boring and patronizing, so we're not going to do that. Rather, I'm going to focus on the most important concept. Try to shed a new light on them, and also go over problems to try to show you how to approach them and how to think about them in order to successfully solve them and find the answer in an efficient manner. Now, ideally, before the lectures, you would have read the material in the textbook. I think that will make it much easier to follow. And then I should also mention, I'm not forcing you to come to class. If you don't want to come to class, that's your decision. It's happened before that some people never show up to class and do well, but let me tell you, based on my experience, that's quite rare. So coming to class should be to your advantage and really make you perform better. So please do come. However, attendance in tutorials is mandatory. And why is that? Well, that's because logic is very much about practice, practice, and practice. And in the tutorials, basically what you're going to be doing with your TA is supervised practice. They're going to help you to think about the problems so that you just become better and better at solving those problems. Okay? So attendance in tutorial is mandatory. As I said, you're going to have to look at Canvas, and here's why. First, you have the detailed course outline that I encourage you to go have a look at right now. You can pause this video and go look. It contains a lot more information about the structure of the course, the assessment, and all of that, than what you would have seen on the course calendar. Then you're going to have the grading scale, which I'm going to explain shortly. And then you're also going to have the homework assignments that you have to complete on Canvas. Okay. Each of those homework assignments, there's 6 of them, is going to be available on Canvas for 5 days, from Monday to Friday. And at some point during that week, you're going to have to go there and answer those questions. Okay, so you have a 5-day window, meaning if you come to me saying, oh, my internet connection was down, or I don't know what excuse you might have, but hey, you have a 5-day window. You should be able to do it during that period. And as I said, there's this big problem set for practice that you should download and work through during the course of the semester. So everything will be there in advance, so hopefully nothing is at the last minute, and you will know exactly what's coming ahead, and you can even, go a little bit faster if you feel like it. So for the evaluations, there's going to be 5% for participation in tutorials. There's the 6 homework assignments that I've just mentioned for worth a total of 15%, so 2.5% each, which you're going to complete at home online. Then there's going to be 2 midterm exams that we're going to do in person, 25% each. And then there's the final exam, 30%. One question I often get is, are those exams cumulative? And the answer is that I'm not going to ask a question about what was in the previous exam, but the material really builds, in a systematic manner. So that if you haven't mastered the stuff for exam 1, you're going to be struggling in exam 2, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, yes, the exams are cumulative. Now, since you have a 5-day window for the quizzes and the other assessments are participation and exams, there's really not a way in which you can be late. So 100% penalty on the first day if you're late, right? You have to do it within the time window. As for the grades will be numerical, and at the end of the semester, I'm going to convert that into a letter using the following scale. Normally, I'm shooting for something like a high B- average. If it's higher, great. And if it's lower, I'm just going to bump everybody. So I never bump down, but I always bump up if it's too low. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Now, for the 5% participation grade, it's going to be at your TA's discretion. So I give them the opportunity to assign those grades however they want. They're going to explain to you how that's going to be done in the first tutorial. And then, yeah, you're going to get the grade at the end of the semester. Now, our 2 TAs are Iman and Curtis. Iman is doing sections 101, 103, 104, 110, and Curtis is doing 112, 15, 16, 111. Just like for me, each of them has one Zoom link that they're going to use for their tutorials and office hours, at least as long as we are doing remote teaching. And that's going to be the same link for everything. So you can click here, or there's an announcement on Canvas, also a clickable link. And also in the detailed course outline, you're going to have clickable links there with their Zoom information. Now, here I say don't annoy your TAs. And what I mean by that is if you think they've made a mistake in grading, go ask them. But then if somehow you don't agree with them still, don't harass them. Just come to me. I'm the one who deals with appeals here, and we're going to see if you're right. And if you are, you're going to get your points back, and that's going to be the end of it. All right. One thing you should know about tutorials, there are no tutorials during first week of class. They only start in the second week, so no need to go on Zoom during that first week for your tutorial. One thing I love about teaching is catching people who cheat. I just enjoy it. And I'm pretty good at it too. All right, so I wouldn't try my luck if I were you. I catch people every time I teach this course, and each time it's really a pleasure to give you a 0% and a fail and to report you to the dean, which is what I'm going to do. So don't try your luck, okay? About the textbook, it's called An Introduction to Logic. It's not too expensive. It's the cheapest one that was good that I could find. And it has the advantage of teaching the material in a way that is quite digestible, right? It's not an overload of information. It does things in a very progressive way, which I like. So that's what we're going to be using for this course. There's a previous edition titled Natural Deduction. If you happen to have a copy, yes, you can use it. There are a few differences between the two editions, mostly because I gave a lot of feedback to the author about things I didn't like, and he was nice enough to improve it, at least as I see it. Now, when we are going to have online classes or in-person classes, I'm going to ask you to show some etiquette online. That means mute yourselves when you are not talking. And in general, try to not multitask. And especially in person, that's important, because if you're checking, I was going to say Facebook, but you guys don't use Facebook anymore, right? Anyway, whatever you're using, right? Don't use that in class, because it's distracting not just you, but everybody around you. And just try to be, a good member of the student community and not distract your friends there. So just focus on the class. It's 15 minutes. Just try to focus for that period of time. All right, so that's it for the administrative things. Normally, I would now take questions, but of course, that's not possible in a pre-recorded lecture. So if you do have questions, please drop in at the office hour, and I'm going to be happy to answer for you. For the remaining of today's pre-recorded lecture, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what is logic, right? Just to get our feet wet a little bit. And the way I see it is that there are really two parts to logic. And there's a nice book by this guy, Daniel Bonnevac, and here's a quote from it, because I think he says it very well. He says, logic is both an art and a science. And that's what I meant by the two parts, right? The art part and the science part. So he says, logic is concerned with constructing a theory of correct reasoning, which makes it a science. And modern symbolic developments, which is what we're going to study in this course, they have led to sophisticated mathematical theories of reasoning. So that gives you a very systematic approach of thinking about what makes a piece of reasoning correct or incorrect. But logic is also concerned with practice, with applying theory to practice. And that is what makes it an art. Okay? Most people study logic to improve their ability to reason, meaning to argue, to analyze, and to think critically about issues that concern them. And really, I'm going to try to structure that course so that those objectives are met, since that's the most practical benefit of studying logic. So the art part and the science part are really the two pillars of what it is to become proficient in logic. So I'll talk about both of those in turn. For the remaining part of today's lecture, I will talk about the art part, and we're going to return to the science part next time. So what does it mean for logic to be an art? Well, art today, the word art is often used to mean the fine arts, right? So music, painting, maybe acting, maybe dancing, and things like that. But traditionally, the word art has a broader meaning that is more or less interchangeable with skill, right? It also includes things like applied science, industry, craftsmanship. So we can talk about the art of fishing for fishermen, or the art of building for a carpenter or a cobbler, I think, and things like that. So art has really the sense of mastering a particular skill. And this is what we're going to be trying to do when we develop the art of logical reasoning. Now, this sense of art comes from the Greek word techne, technique. So when we're talking about art here, we're talking about becoming proficient in some techniques. So logic as an art is really just the study of a set of techniques governing correct reasoning. Specifically, the study of how to use a set of techniques that are known to be correct, right, to govern your reasoning. So this is why logic was and remains a part of what's called the liberal arts education curriculum. Now, you might be wondering what this liberal arts thing is, and I'm just going to mention it very quickly because it helps to understand the place that traditionally logic has occupied in university curriculum. And it really is so old that it's impressive in itself. So traditionally, liberal arts comes from the Latin word liber, which just means free. Right? So what are the liberal arts? Well, those are the topics that a free person or someone who aspires to live as a free person should study in order to develop their full potential. Because, to be truly a free person, you have to be able to think for yourself, right? And in order to do that well, you're going to be in need of some techniques to help you to think for yourself well. So liberal arts, as a result, traditionally has a sort of general purpose, which is contrasted with training just for a particular task or for one particular job. It's rather supposed to give you very foundational skills and knowledge that are going to enable you to develop general perspectives on basically about anything that you might be interested in at a particular moment. Now, in contemporary liberal arts colleges, typically liberal arts is associated with the humanities, meaning things like philosophy, history, classics, literature, languages, etc. And sometimes they're going to throw in a Q requirement here and there. But traditionally, liberal arts was considered to be much broader than that. And I think it's kind of a little bit of a loss that we're not doing it that way anymore. So here's a traditional diagram that, I traced it to 1131, so that's like almost 900 years. And it's been recurring for centuries after centuries. And the idea is just to try to explain how to structure a liberal arts curriculum. And traditionally, there were two parts, the trivium and the quadrivium. The quadrivium contains 4 disciplines. And the idea of the quadrivium is to develop your intellect per se, or your judgment, namely to become better at distinguishing between truth and falsehood, right? And of course, there are truths and falsehoods about all sorts of different topics, but traditionally it was thought that there are 4 fundamental parts of it: arithmetic, music for aesthetic truth, geometry, and astronomy. And for centuries, everybody doing liberal arts were doing that, which is not exactly part of liberal arts as it's understood today. And I think it's a little bit of a loss. The trivium, on the other hand, is not so much about judging what is true or false, or what is beautiful or what is not beautiful. It's rather about organizing your thoughts in a very systematic way and express your thought in a precise and accurate manner. And this is traditionally thought to be developed by studying 3 disciplines, namely grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Rhetoric being the art of giving good speeches. So as you see, Logic is one of those 7 disciplines, and as we're going to see, it's a very central one. Now, some people have troubles with judgment. They are not very good at distinguishing truths and falsehood. And some of you might remember that a few years ago, there was the US press secretary, Kellyanne Conway, who made a famous quote about, our press secretary gave alternative facts. And, you know, when you start talking about alternative facts in this fashion, you're having a little bit of difficulty distinguishing between falsehoods and truths. And other people who may or may not have difficulty about judging things correctly have difficulty with the other part, which is organizing their thoughts in a consistent manner, free from contradictions. And here, you know, I have a little example from the Twitter, where a certain guy called Donald said of Michael Bloomberg, who was then mayor of New York, never had the guts to run for president, knows nothing about me. His last term as mayor was a disaster. And at, 4 years earlier saying, Mike Bloomberg's doing a great job as mayor of New York City. So we see an exact contradiction in terms, right? So this is a problem with organizing your thoughts in a way that is free from contradictions. By the way, I often take examples from the world of politics. Don't read too much into whether it's from the left or the right. I just try to find the most funny examples I can find, and that happened to be the one I saw when I was preparing this lecture. All right, so back to the liberal arts education. The main idea of it is just to make students more culturally literate. And that also involves, as we saw, knowing some science. And if you have this sort of cultural literacy, then that's going to enable you to be a more original and creative thinker, which are really the fundamentals of what it means to be a good critical thinker. Here's a quote from some guy you might recognize. His name was Albert Einstein, I think, right? You might have heard of that guy. Pretty smart guy. And he was saying the following: the value of an education in a liberal arts college is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind. And I really want to emphasize the training of the mind, because that's what this course is about. And it's the training of the mind to think something that cannot be learned from books. Okay, very, very interesting. And because this is so important to have people with a training like that, this is why for millennia educators have focused on teaching logic, which is absolutely essential to expressing and organizing your thoughts well. Okay, so that's what I had to do for today. At the end of each lecture in this course, I'm going to have a slide just like this one, where I tell you what should be read for next time. So for next time, there are actually, one has a title that changed a little bit. It's just studying logic, a few remarks, and the other one is called introductory notes. So there are PDF files that you can find on Canvas. Go have a look at that. And after that, the lecture, the readings will be from the textbook. All right. So thank you very much for your attention, and see you in the next video.